another reason that tracking is important is it gives us an understanding of conversion ratios in between each step. So you can see here, actions lead to answers or results, which lead to appointments, which lead to appointments gone on, which lead to contracts, either listing agreements and or buyer listing agreements signed, which lead to under contracts, which lead to closes. Now, the example that we have down below here is if you can imagine that there's 150 actions being taken, and the result of those 150 actions is 26 people answered the phone, which allowed the agent to set 3 appointments, of which 1 canceled and they went on 2 and gave 2 full presentations. They signed 1 listing contract, which then turned into an under contract and then 1 closing. Now, the reason that these ratios are important is if these ratios get better or worse over time, it gives us an opportunity to look within the business to see where the disconnect is in the process. An example would be if they made 150 calls, but only 10% of the people answered and we had a very low answer ratio, it might be the time of day that they're calling. It might be a list of bad phone numbers or bad contacts. It might be something outside of their control that we can help adjust in order for them to have better results. Now, if they spoke to 26 people and set 0 appointments or gained 0 leads, it might be their scripts that is their biggest challenge. If they're setting appointments and yet all the appointments are canceling, that might be the reason that they're setting the appointment isn't motivating enough to the person they're setting appointments for. If they're setting appointments and they're not getting listing agreements or buyer listing agreements signed, it's probably a lack of a good presentation. If they're getting listing contracts signed and buyer listing contracts signed and they're not getting somebody under contract, we probably need to work on our processes. See, by tracking this, it allows us to guide the agent and coach the agent into the areas that are the most effective for them to improve their business. On a business that's operating at a high level, this is important because a 5% gain in a business will cover a lot of expenses in a year. Now, the way we typically track is we want to track on some type of spreadsheet or Google Doc. So here's an example here. You can see Catherine Lewis. She lists the days that she worked, the hours that she worked, the hours that she called, how many dials she had, how many contacts she made, how many appointments were set, how many people went in as a nurture in the pipeline, and how many people were added to the database. This is a great way to begin tracking. There's many examples of this on the online resource. In fact, you can see here, this is a weekly tracking form where an agent can simply fill out the number of contacts they made specifically to each of the individual type of lead generation strategies. So how many sphere of influence, how many expired calls, how many for sale by owners, how many just listed or just sold, how many internet leads, and how many follow-up calls did they make. Your agent doesn't have to make cold calls for us to track. They can simply track the number of B2B appointments that they're going on, the number of leads that they're following up with, or how many leads that they received through their system, how many leads that they contacted, how many leads did they schedule appointments with, how many of those leads did a buyer agency agreement, and how many of those leads are currently showing. So each individual agent can have a customized weekly tracking form to report their KPIs on. One of the things that I say is the money is in the follow-up. And what I found is agents tend to not have great systems when it comes to managing their follow-up. The key to this is giving them a simple way to manage their follow-up or their pipeline. Personally, I think paper or a simple Google Doc is the easiest way. When I say paper, I mean each client is a sheet of paper that has a 3-hole punch and kept in a 3-ring binder, so the agent can look at it every single day or at least once a week to review what clients need to be called that week. A pipeline report can be uploaded into a Google Doc or just simply kept as an Excel spreadsheet. Again, just the name, the contact information, and what the notes were on the last time the agent had followed up. This is important to review this once a week to ensure that no leads are falling out of that agent's bucket.